Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, I want to challenge you in this video to look at life differently. I want to challenge you to completely rethink how you go about living your life. And to do that, I want to completely deconstruct how we perceive life. Now, the strange thing about how we commonly view life is that we spend majority of our life preparing and focusing on the future. For example, when you're in childhood, you're preparing for college. When you're in college, you're preparing for the workforce. When you're in the workforce, you're preparing for retirement. And in retirement, you can do all the things you've dreamed of. And we end up believing in this strange idea that these years are for preparing and these years are for living. And we end up believing in this idea of the promised land of retirement. That you should do things that you don't necessarily want to do for a huge chunk of your life, because eventually you'll reach a point where all your hard work will pay off and you'll have all the time in the world to play pickleball, live in 55 over communities, and drive golf carts in Florida. But I'm here to tell you today that retirement is a scam. It's a huge scam because it focuses so much on preparing for the future and sacrificing some of the greatest years of your life. We need to stop living our lives based on this model of preparation that the future is going to be better. And instead, we need to create a new model that focuses more on living for today. So in this video, I want to propose a new model on how we live our lives. I want to completely reinvent this status quo model where we spend our entire lives in preparation for the future and instead create a new model where we focus more on embracing every single moment of life. So let's begin. Chapter 1, Viewing Life as Vertical instead of Horizontal. We often view life as linear, horizontal, in the form of a timeline, as if it's something that you go through, like you go through childhood, you go through college, you go through the workforce, and then retire. But this is where we need to begin, rethinking how we view life, because the problem I see with this way of thinking is you think life is something that happens and not something you control. Viewing life in this horizontal timeline way makes you think as if life is just something that passes by, something that you have no control over. So I propose that instead of viewing life as this horizontal timeline, we flip it up and look at it as if it's a vertical ladder. And I mean by viewing your life as if it's something that is building up, as if each step is leading to the next step. And this might sound confusing. So let me explain how this works by looking back at my own life. So after finishing high school, from 18 to 22, I was in college and traveling the world. The next step was from 23 to 25 when I lived abroad in the Peace Corps. Then, from 26 to 27, I worked at my first adult job and saved a lot of money. And finally, from 28 to today, I'm exploring entrepreneurship and doing YouTube full-time. When you view life this way, you're seeing life as if it's building up instead of something that's just passing you by. So we need to start viewing life with this new model to ditch the horizontal timeline model and flip it up and see life as this vertical ladder about something that we're building up. So now let's go a little bit more detail and talk about how this new model allows you to live more in the present. Chapter 2, Focusing on Accomplishing instead of Preparing. Now, as I said earlier, when we view life as this horizontal timeline, we end up spending so much time preparing for the future. But life is much more than that. We shouldn't view life as if it's something that we're constantly preparing for, but we should view life as something that we're living and building right now. So we should focus more on accomplishing rather than preparing. When I look back at my own life, it makes a lot more sense to view it as this vertical ladder that I am building, because with each phase of life was an accomplishment that led me, that was the next step for the next phase of life. For example, getting a college degree and traveling the world gave me the experience and qualification to go on to the next step of joining the Peace Corps. Then, my time in the Peace Corps gave me the experience and connections to go on to the next step of getting my first adult job. Then, the adult job gave me the financial resources to quit the job and pursue YouTube full-time. And I'm not sure what this next step will lead me to. When I look at my life this way, I see it as if it's something that I'm building, something that I'm working on and trying my hardest to accomplish things, because when I accomplish something, it will lead me to the next step in life that is usually much better. And when I live this way, it allows me to focus on today and being the best version of myself today, because I have the belief that my decisions today create my future tomorrow. Compared to this horizontal model, where I'm always focused on the future, preparing and expecting that somehow tomorrow will be better, delaying living for today in the belief that living is for later on in life. The future isn't some place, but it's something that you're creating right now. And when you view life as this vertical ladder of accomplishments, as if you're building up your life, and with each accomplishment will lead you to the next step in life, you're focused more on the present because you're focused on accomplishing things rather than just preparing for things. And so now I want to talk a little bit more in detail on how we measure these accomplishments in this vertical ladder of life. Chapter 3. Focusing on measuring meaning instead of measuring length. Now, in this horizontal model of life that I keep mentioning, we often view time as if it's this linear thing, as if all years are the same length. However, when I look back at my own life, all the years don't seem as if they were the same length. The period of time was dependent on what I was doing and how much of an impact that time made on me. And so, we should focus on measuring meaning instead of measuring length. It makes more sense to measure your life in this vertical way, focusing on creating meaning, rather than viewing life as this horizontal thing where all the years are the same and 1 year is just 1 year. Now, if this sounds confusing, let me show you exactly how I would measure my own life. So, looking back in the last 12 years of my life, I would say my 5 years in college and travel gave 35% of my life experiences I have today. And the 2 years in Peace Corps gave me 40% of the experiences I have today. Then, the 2 years in my adult job saving didn't enrich my life that much and only gave me 5% of the experiences I have today. And this YouTube experience gave me about 20% of the experiences I have today. A year isn't just a year. It's dependent on what you do in the year. I mean, looking back at my own life, my time in the Peace Corps and my time at the adult job were the same length in years, but the Peace Corps experience gave me 7 times the amount of experience. And I personally want to create more years with tons of experiences that I derive meaning from. And so viewing my life in this vertical way and measuring my life in this vertical way allows me to focus on creating more experiences, more positive meaning experiences in life, instead of just viewing a year as a year and that all time is equal. So now I want to talk about how to actively climb this vertical ladder of life. Chapter 4. Knowing what you are building. So as I just said, in my own personal ladder of life that I am currently building and climbing, in the beginning, I was creating all these rich life experiences, and then it just stopped. I found myself making really good money with this stable job, but I didn't feel like I was building up my life that I wanted anymore. And I started to ask myself, what is the next thing I'm building towards? So before I started doing this full time, I was working in public health. I have no background in public health, but I just had a connection that helped me get the job. And in that job, my boss really liked me and she wanted to help me continue growing in that field. And if I decided that I wanted to build, or if I decided I was going to keep building my life that way, my life might have built like this. The entry-level adult job. Next, getting more established in the career. Next, getting bigger titles, and so on. And to some, that might sound like this amazing, ideal scenario, and that's just because we all want different things in life, and there's no right or wrong way to build your life. But for me personally, that is not how I wanted to build my life, and I knew that if I continued doing that, my life would continue going that direction. So instead of using the job to build a career, I decided to use it as a financial tool and create an opportunity to do this. And I'm sure you know that once you get experience in something professionally, you just generally continue building that because that is what you know. And I think it's important to ask yourself every now and then, what am I building towards? We often view life as if it's this thing that's happening to us, as if we have no control over what is going on. But if you view life as this vertical ladder that you're climbing up, with each accomplishment, it leads you to the next thing. You understand that you do have control over your life, and if you're climbing in a direction that you're not happy with, if you're moving up and building your life up to something that you're not happy in, then you shouldn't keep going in that direction. You should make active steps in your life to make a change, because things are going to change on their own. In my scenario, it might seem silly to quit this high-paying job in a very good field, but for me, it would have just meant building this life that I wasn't interested in. So now I just want to finish this video off with one final thing to think about. Chapter 5. These are the good old days. As I said in the beginning of this video, we often view life as this horizontal timeline where all we're doing is preparing. That life is something that you just go through. And when you live your life this way, you end up spending the majority of your life focusing on the future in the promised land of retirement. You end up thinking that the greatest years of your life are when you have all the time in the world to play pickleball, living in 55 over communities, and driving golf carts throughout Florida. And obviously, you need to be financially responsible, prepare for the time when you're unable to work, because it'll eventually come. But you shouldn't spend so much of your life in the future and preparing for the future, because as I have explained in this video, life is a vertical ladder. It's something that we're building right now. With each step you take, each accomplishment will lead to the next phase of life. If you choose to be the best version of yourself today and climb the vertical ladder of life in the direction you want, in the future, you'll probably be a better version of yourself that has lived an extremely rich life. We often put off today in hopes that the future will be better, and we spend so much time of our lives preparing. But the truth is, when you're 80, you'll want to be 60. When you're 60, you'll want to be 40. And when you're 40, you'll want to be 20. You shouldn't live your life constantly preparing for tomorrow, but you should build your life up in a direction that you think is meaningful, because as Carly Simon said, these are the good old days. These are the days that you're going to look back on fondly. When you're old and driving your golf cart through Florida, you're going to be reminiscing about what you did today and the experiences you made today. And so we shouldn't view life as this horizontal timeline that we just go through, and instead view life as this vertical ladder, the vertical ladder of life that we're climbing and building, creating the life that we want, living with meaning and living in the present, knowing that what we accomplish today will lead us to the next phase in life, because these are the good old days. These are the days of our lives. And with that, muchas gracias, que tengo un buen día. Video 110, nos vemos, chicos.